Well, hey, I talked to someone today, and they said, "Wow," I said, "I have like 42 records. It's actually about 46, but I kind of repackaged a few of them and don't count a few of them." But wow, how did you record those? And I said, "Well, that's expensive." I said, "No, I had a friend who had a studio, and I would go to his house. Not his house; it was a place over here where I have my practice studio." And he was a drummer, and we recorded like basic tracks for 2 or 3, maybe 4 songs in a week. Before he had a paying session, he said, "Come over early, and we'll knock out 3 or 4 songs." We actually would create them, kind of write that. I'd have the ideas, but we'd arrange them and record them, and he'd send me home with the recordings on a disc. I had the same exact Korg machine he did, and I would just put it in mine and finish out the songs. Did like almost 300 songs that way in about 3 years. It was very prolific. And well, how did you get the covers made? Well, my girlfriend worked at PCC and in the software department, and she said she bought me Photoshop and said, "Here, learn this. It will change your life. You won't need to depend on anyone for anything then." So I did. It was a little clumsy at first, but I put stuff out. I got the hang of it after a while, and then YouTube came along a little too late, but it fine-tuned some of the things I didn't really know. And but all trial and error, and there's a lot of people who gave me some grief over it, but for the most part, I have really nice fans and friends, and I call them friends. They're the Frans. They're very forgiving, and or they just, I'd say, "Come on, let's go on an adventure," as they do in Piccadilly. Go on this journey with me, and to see what happens. And because I didn't want to wait for somebody to come and do it for me, and I couldn't afford it. And I had a passion to release music, and I was working at Portland Community College, writing parking tickets at the time. So I had 5 or 6 hours where I'd walk out in the forest in the cold and the wet, and listening to Snoop Dogg and Madonna. Seriously, Snoop Dogg Doggy Style. I had a cassette player, and it would just be on both sides. It would just keep playing over and over and over, and it just made me walk and made me think, and came up with great ideas. I couldn't afford to get 1,000 CDs made, and so I came up with this idea to write a proposal, and I wrote it in perfect typing, no errors, and I had it proofread. It's not Facebook. And sent it off to 26 different companies who were, CD-ROM manufacturers, and said, "Hey, if you would make a run of 100 for like $200, so it'd cost you $2 for the CD and a jewel case and the inserts, you'd make more money doing that if you did 1,000. And you'd put guys like me in the record business," and that's what happened. I was also on, MP3.com early on, man. Bryce Van Patten and I got into that when it was just brand new, and that was a pretty cool deal. And it was before there was really iTunes. And well, if you just keep doing it and you keep having ambition, you can't help but get better at it. And in a while, you have a big body of work. And so that was my objective. About a year after I started that job, I went to Amsterdam with Steve Broy and a guy named Alan Wrench, of a band called Kill Alan Wrench. He took me to Herman Brood's art studio. He was a musician like Tom Waits, and a painter, and he had a large body of work. He had committed suicide the year before we ended up at the place, and when we went to the place, Alan said, "Come on, you like this? You're an art history. You're an art guy." "Yeah, I am." And when we got there, we passed this guy coming out of this place. His studio was on top of a bar, in a loft on top of the bar, and it was Bono from U2. I said, "Hey, there's Bono from U2." And Alan said, "Yeah, right." And it really was. The guy that we went into Herman's studio, and he was He had a manager. It looks like, remember Dieter when when Wayne's World, what's it, Mike Myers played Dieter on Saturday Night Live? He looked exactly like that. Little round glasses, little guy, black turtleneck. And he said, well, if you showed up a half hour early, I wouldn't have been able to do this with you because Bono had spent the weekend here. He was famous. He had friends that were famous people, and they would stay in his house, his loft. Anyway, I saw his artwork on the wall that took up the whole wall, prints of it, and you could buy them. Alan spent like $7,000 on, I think, 3 or 4 prints. And I thought, wow. And we went into the art studio, and there's paint on the floor everywhere. It's where he created. And I thought, wow, I would never know who this guy was if he'd only painted 1 or 2 things, and he wouldn't have this thing. And I said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to create music for after I'm not here. You got to drop your ego, leave it at the door, and you just got to create, man. Now, Van Gogh didn't stop because he didn't make any money. Otherwise, he would have stopped after 1 painting. His dark period, the Ox, before he got to the good stuff. But I just learned how to do everything myself, so I wouldn't have to wait for somebody, because the graphics guys were like, well, I'm busy this weekend, and I don't know if I like this idea. I want my idea. And then it's like, no, I don't want your idea. This is my stuff, and I want to do it my way. And so I did, and it worked out. Same with, like, I'm in, 57 or 58 books on rock and metal, and the encyclopedias of rock and metal, and, they don't come looking for you. You hear about a guy who's doing a book, or they hear about you and say, hey, want to contribute? And so you either write a story or they send you a questionnaire. And I just kept finding people like that. And it was like building the story, man. And everybody's got a story. And this is my story. And, well, I just keep going, whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not. It's just what I do. And pretty soon after a while, I look at it and, wow, I've got a lot of stuff. I had the fortunity, I had the great luck of being trained by Andy McKay in 1980 when he did my Ravers record. In fact, he offered me a job to work at MCA in publicity, which is my biggest regret. I would have been great at that, and I could have taken a pay-home check and taken a take-home paycheck is what he called it, because the musicians only got loans. You think they're all rich, but if they were all rich, they wouldn't need the record companies, right? And that's exactly how they work it. It's like they keep you owing, so you can't leave. But if you work for the company, you really do make money. And I would have not been living in Portland, Oregon. Well, that's just anyway. He's been my friend for throughout since 1980, and another guy I got hooked up with is Shep Gordon, Alice Cooper's manager, and a whole lot more. He created the Food Network, and he started off as a drug dealing rock manager, and this guy named Norm Klein, who was Danny Kurth's friend, used to work for him, and he worked for Alice Cooper. He was Alice Cooper's bodyguard. And we got to talking, and he said, you'd be the perfect guy to talk to Shep. You'd love him. And so I called him and started a relationship. He probably wouldn't remember me today, but I call him, a couple times a week, and we talked for an hour. It was great, man. I learned so much, and how to do publicity, and that's what makes this whole show business run, and how to get free publicity, because he had no budget either. So we could really relate, and he was glad that somebody was interested in what he did. And he's the guy who really invented Alice Cooper and invented the Alice Cooper show and all of that stuff. And you just don't hear about that. It's like with Kiss. They didn't invent their show. Their manager did. And You just find the monkeys on a chain to go perform for you, right? So anyway, I guess you gotta be ambitious, and you gotta have some weird driving spring like I've got, and I start working on stuff, and like, man, I started back in cable access. I was doing cable access for a long time. I started in 1993, and I went to video. Oh, there's another bunny. Yeah, they come out about this time. And hi, bunny. And so I got back into it about. Look at him go. And I got 2018, 2019, I think, yeah. In September 2019 is when I got back into cable access. I looked at the folder on my computer that I edit things and then save it to this one folder. I had 922 videos that I had made for cable access and YouTube. Everything I make, I put it cable access, and since the pandemic's been going, I've been able to FTP my shows there. So people call me and say, "Man, it's like the Matt Network. I saw your show. I saw another show." Well, I got set up down in my basement with a green screen, and I went to college for video production, worked in the movies for a couple of years, and man, made some sick money, and then they priced themselves out of the area and nobody worked. So I've already been through this pandemic kind of thing. But, I just, somebody asked me how I did it, and that's how I do it. And I did it with no budget, and I was making minimum wage at Portland Community College when I started for 5 years. I think I topped out at $8 an hour, and then they gave me they hired me as a shuttle driver, overflow, and got some benefits. I've been there, and I've done a bunch of stuff for the college. Deliver paper, shuttle driver, ticket writer. Used to deliver the books to the bookstore. It always was some job of transporting something somewhere. And well, you can do it. Then when you get paid for anything, you got to put the money back into the business. You can't spend it on yourself. And can't do any frivolous type of things. That's what I meant. So I'd buy guitars when I needed to. I had no credit when I started, and I got a Korg recorder on time payments. The first was $1,300. Since then, I bought two of the same units for a couple $100. But back then, they were new and expensive, and it was an all-in-one thing. That allowed me to a Korg D1600. The one with the USB. It allowed me to make all the recordings that I've done, and woof. And well, so in case you were curious, I didn't get handed a bunch of money. I just did everything by the skin of my teeth, and sometimes the teeth that weren't even there, the skin. So perseverance, man. The guy who chews his tail will eventually chew it off, and I'm weird that way. I will work on things until they're done, and I don't know. There's the wild dogs of Southwest Portland. Woof. And I'm the wild dogs on usmetal.com, and I want to thank you for watching this, and I will talk to you next time. Auf Wiedersehen. I'm Matt McCord. Thank you.